Minister for Information. Thank you very much. Colleague ministers, chief executives of agencies present here, senior management officials and staff of the sector ministries and agencies, members of the media. May I join the Honorable Minister for Information in welcoming you to this session and also to thank you for coming. Distinguished members of the media, we are all very much aware of what His Excellency the President just announced barely 13 hours ago, and I must say that as much as we in the aviation sector are indeed relieved that we will again begin to see brisk business activity in our airports, we are also very mindful of our civic duty to protect the lives of our passengers and the generality of all Ghanaians, as well as those who live in our country. Ladies and gentlemen, about 5 months ago, His Excellency the President directed that our land, air, and sea borders be closed, effective 23rd March 2020. Since then, the general economy has been severely hit in many aspects, especially in the aviation sector, as well as the hospitality industry were directly affected. The impact on aspects of the economy, particularly jobs and business revenues, and many other associated activities have also been adversely affected. We are all also privy to the various support mechanisms and the relief programs introduced, including the stimulus package by the President to alleviate the sufferings of Ghanaians, both citizens and businesses, and we are grateful for that. I'm sure many Ghanaians see in these measures the marks of a caring government and a sensitive President. While we in the aviation sector have played our part to support the government's efforts in this regard, such as waiving rent, reducing royalties, as well as landing charges for aircraft coming into the country, we have also managed to keep our staff in their jobs, due partly to our own efforts, as well as the package put together to support our sector by the Minister of Finance, directed by the President. Within this period also, we have been able to support emergency and evacuation flights to convey both Ghanaians as well as foreign citizens to their respective countries of origin. These we have undertaken with some constraints, also as our contribution towards fighting this menace to keep families together has been our own little base of helping the nation. In the line of duty, some of our workers have been affected, but thank God we are still healthy and strong enough to ensure that we continue to serve the nation. Today, ladies and gentlemen, the Minister of Aviation and its agencies remain resolute to help attain the vision set by the President to make Ghana the aviation hub in the sub-region, and we are committed to doing this while maintaining the highest standards of safety and security, as exhibited in the past, that recently earned the nation the highest score on the African continent as awarded by the International Civil Aviation Authority in 2019. Might I emphasize too that as we strive to get out of the claws of the COVID-19 pandemic, we still strive to continue to ensure that we adhere strictly to the protocols laid down by the Minister of Health, as those protocols are for our own good. In this regard, therefore, I take this opportunity to urge all Ghanaians and the traveling public to do same. In this regard, may I make reference to our experience in the special evacuation flights, as well as the limited domestic operations, and state here that we have been very rigorous in our adherence to these well-known protocols, including disinfection of the airports and aircraft themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, sticking with the protocols, therefore, will not be new to us. That is with the reopening of the airports. Safe to say that it is the increase in the number of passengers that could pose a challenge, and that is why the Ghana Airports Company, supported by the Ghana Port Health Authority, have instituted special measures to ensure the effective management of the process here at Kotoka International Airport. We intend to make the operational system smooth, with very little inconvenience for the arriving and departing passengers. To be specific, the stakeholders have brought about significant physical transformation of the halls, that's arrival and departure, with new infrastructure, including the installation of COVID-19 testing devices. These I leave to the chief executives of the Ghana Airports Company and the Ghana Health Service to take you through. Additionally, the various technical gadgets and testing devices that have been installed under your guidance, I commend the Ghana Health Service for the meticulous work that you've done so far and call on you to share that for all of us to understand what we go through at the airport. The Ghana Airport Company will also take us through the process which passengers will have to go through as they arrive into the country or depart from here. Honorable Ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media, may I take this opportunity to state that out of the African countries that were all closed down during the pandemic, we, Ghana, was the first to reopen domestic operations. But I also state that our protocols and the mode of operations of our two airlines were recognized as very good examples of how airlines and airport operations could be managed effectively during the pandemic. For these reasons, Ghana, together with Rwanda, were chosen as the two countries to participate in ICAO's bid to standardize protocols for post-COVID-19 operations. I commend both our airport management personnel as well as the Ghana local airline companies, that's Africa World Airlines and Passion Air, and congratulate you for your efforts. To the management of the cargo handling companies, I say I echo to you for helping the nation to bring into the country badly needed logistics. Of special mention too is the Millennium Promise Organization for donating port health stands with temperature thermometers to be able to help us implement the protocols effectively. I also commend our own Ghanaian Zoomline company for the quick response to disinfect and fumigate all our airports when we need them. I understand that now they have a repeatable solution called One Drop, that's a WHO certified natural water-based product that will be most effective in getting rid of all viruses and bacteria. Finally, I would like to conclude that the processes installed at the Kotoka International Airport are set to ensure a higher level of safety with the opening of the airport. I would also like to add that various exercises have already been conducted, including orientations, test runs, and disinfections, to ensure that we prevent the COVID-19 from being imported into the country. For the avoidance of doubt, let me state very clearly that the Ghana Civil Aviation Authority yesterday issued a NOTAM to all airlines and all airport operators on the passenger restrictions and health measures that will be effective as we open the airport after midnight tonight. Thank you all very much for coming. God bless us all. Thank you.
Colleagues, as I mentioned, Dr. Bernard Okoboy will speak to the policy infrastructure that has been put in place as we reopen.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister for Information. Thank you very much, Minister for Information. Let me quickly acknowledge all my colleague ministers who are here and our invited guests, the media as well. So largely, we are still sticking to our five-pronged approach in managing our COVID situation in Ghana. And if you remember, the first one had to do with stopping or limiting the entry of the virus into Ghana. The second one had to do with containing or restricting community spread. And the third one had to do with providing adequate care for the sick. The fourth had to do with limiting the adverse social and economic impact. And the fifth one had to do with increasing our independence so that we can produce, especially our PPEs, in country. So far, as a result of the interventions put in place by this government and the cooperation from citizens, we have a situation where, as we speak nationally, as mentioned by His Excellency the President, we have just about 1,059 active cases. That's people with the virus in Ghana. We want to ensure that we don't go back to high numbers in terms of cases. And so, as a ministry, we were very concerned and insisted on having a safe reopening of our airport, the international airport. And I am happy to say that so far, the measures that have been put in place do guarantee a very safe airport. And when I talk about a safe airport, I'm talking about having mechanisms that can identify and pick any individual who tries to enter this country with the virus. As mentioned yesterday in His Excellency's address, it is well established that our first cases came from outside the country. COVID is not an endemic disease. It came from other places. And so far, the single biggest source of risk of getting the virus into the country is the international airport. And that is why, as a ministry, we are glad and confident to announce that the measures put in place do guarantee safe reopening of the airport. So what have we done? We have gone for a testing regime that identifies the virus. And when I say identifies the virus, if the test tells you that someone is positive, it means the fellow has the virus. In the reverse, if the test comes out as negative, we are sure that the fellow is without the virus. Now, we've not only ensured a testing of all passengers in Ghana, but as mentioned by the President, the first measure, as mentioned by the President, and I will read, any passenger arriving in Ghana must be in possession of a negative COVID-19 PCR test result from an accredited laboratory in the country of origin. The test should have been done not more than 72 hours before the scheduled departure from the country of origin. Now, what this means is that before you even get on the plane to come to this country, you would have had a test that says that you are negative for COVID-19. Now, this means that the passenger has a very low risk or a zero risk of having the virus. But we didn't just stop there. Because someone having this negative test along the line of traveling to this country, even within 24 hours, can pick the virus anywhere, including the plane, in the plane. That is why we are having another test when you get to Ghana. And we are very confident that this double testing would ensure that the risk of anybody importing the virus here will be close, in fact, closest to zero. And that is also very reassuring. Let me quickly take the opportunity to say that two things are of prime importance. One, sensitivity of the test. There are all kinds of tests globally. Some actually tell you that the fellow has been exposed to the virus, but they don't tell you whether the fellow at the time of testing has the virus. We went for a testing regime that has a very high sensitivity rate. In fact, average 99 to 100%, so that nobody slips through the testing that we are doing. And then secondly, we were very much interested in time, what we refer to as the turnaround time. How long would it take you to get the results? In certain countries, you have to do a test, wait 1 to 6 hours before the results come. The good news is that this testing regime would give you results maximum within 30 minutes, minimum in about 12 to 15 minutes. So really, it will not add additional time to the time you spend going through immigration and all the procedures before you step out. And so we are happy with the sensitivity level, that's the specificity and the turnaround time. And I think with these two things, we as a ministry and for that matter government were comfortable to allow the Ghana Airports Company Limited, Civil Aviation, Port Health, and for that matter Ghana Air Service to come together and allow for the reopening. What I can also add is that the infrastructure to allow for taking of samples in a safe environment has also been put in place. This will be my initial comments for now. Subsequently, questions will allow us to address any issues that you have. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you. That's Dr. Bernard Okuboy, Deputy Minister responsible for health. So what are the specifics once you get to Ghana? I want to invite Mr. Kwakwa, who is the Acting Managing Director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited, to outline what the specifics are for international travelers once you get to Ghana.
Honorable Ministers and Deputy Ministers, colleagues, Chief Executives, Senior Management Officials, and staff of ministries and agencies, members of the media. I would like to take this opportunity to add my voice to the measures that the nation, including Ghana Airports Company, has put in place to ensure that we do not import the virus into the nation, and also to help that we do not make the airport a place for getting the virus. But the first question is that, did we have a choice? The answer is no, because passengers coming into Ghana drives our key revenues. We also have the mission of becoming the center of aviation business in West Africa. So we are always looking for avenues to separate ourselves from the airports in Africa, especially in our sub-region. And therefore, we did not have a choice at all. And because of that, some of us were turned into doctors, epidemiologists, in working with our colleagues from the health ministry, the government, to make sure that we can get an excellent system solution in place. Because to do so, we needed to put in place measures that would also make it easy, convenient, and appropriate for our passengers or for people to want to come to Ghana. Because we also realize that aviation is a driver of the economy. If people do not come here, the hotels suffer. If people do not come here, our colleagues who drive the taxis, the restaurants, and so forth, they also suffer. So we see it as our responsibility to help grow the economy of Ghana and once again become the center of aviation business by putting in place these structures to make it easy for people to come to Ghana. So what did we do? We had the opportunity to open our domestic airlines or our domestic operations first. And we were the first in Africa to do so. We were the first in Africa to shut our airline business and to restart it. By so doing, the entire Africa was looking at the measures that we put in place. I'm happy to say that the measures were so successful that we became the airport of choice for people to study when they want to reopen their borders. And therefore, the general measures that we needed to put in place to make sure that our passengers, our staff, and the general public will feel safe and will not contract the virus at the airport, we had a bit of control over it, a fair amount of control over those measures. However, coming to the international stage, whereby we are seen as a major importer of the disease into the nation, we needed to do a bit extra, and therefore, all those measures were enhanced. And so I'll talk a bit about that later. But specific to why I'm standing before you is the key measures that we've put in place to make sure that we do not import the virus into the nation. Once again, I'm happy to say that working with our Port Health and the Ministry of Health people, we managed to get the excellent testing system that the Honorable Minister just spoke about. That system, when it says you are positive, it means you have the virus. And as you heard, the accuracy is around 95%, 99 to 100%. But the next question was, how do we put in place the measures to make sure that it is convenient for passengers to go through the protocols, the processes, to get tested and then flow through the terminal building like they did before? Very soon, we will show you images. Not today, because we are still disinfecting the place and we cannot even take you around. But when someone arrives in Ghana, it is mandatory for any airline coming to Ghana to ensure that passengers have face masks on. But we know that some of our people will be coming from afar. If you are traveling from London, you probably travel like 6 hours. And so when you land at Kotoka Airport and you come through the passenger boarding bridge, when you get to the edge of entering the terminal building, we give you a fresh face mask. Under the responsibility and control of Port Health, there's a service provider who we are using to do all of this. So we give you the face mask, and then you start going through the process. When you enter, you go to the far end of one side of our fingers at the upper arrival, and then you queue to go through a payment center. By the way, the testing is going to be at the expense of each passenger at a cost of $150. Now, one convenience that the Honorable Minister says talking about was the fact that there's no country that you can almost go through the terminal building like you used to do and still be able to get your results. And if you are negative and the health professional deem you to be without the virus to come into the country, it's Ghana. We are the first to do so. In Germany, it takes minimum 3 hours to even get that done. And so, like His Excellency indicated yesterday, it takes a maximum of 30 minutes for a particular passenger to go through the entire process, get to Port Health, and there at Port Health, that person is told, because the results will be ready, that he is negative, and therefore he can exit the terminal building and come into the country. If you are positive, like the Honorable Minister just said before me, you go through our medical protocols in the nation, and they'll deal with you. And so that system is so convenient that passengers will practically go through our terminal building with only a fraction of time added to what they used to do before. Okay. Now, the general measures that I spoke about includes the measure that anyone who comes into our facilities would have to wear a face mask. Within Ghana, we've put in the measure that everyone should wear their face masks. I have to put mine off so that you can hear me. That's why I'm don't write it down. You do so at the departure hall. We would have people there to ensure that if you don't have the face mask, you cannot enter. It's not just going to be a sign. There will be enforcement at the frontage of our terminal building, at our departure terminal building. Also, Port Health is going to screen you. And in all our facilities, there will be markers on the floor to help users of the airport to social distance. So similarly, during the arrival process, in addition to all these flying processes that we've defined, there will be markers on the floor for people to follow and to safely social distance themselves to prevent the spread of the virus before the test comes out, and even after the test comes out, because there will be other agencies working within the terminal building. Other measures that we have also put in place is the provision of sanitizing stations at the entrance and at other vantage points throughout our facilities to make it easy for passengers and users of the airport to sanitize their hands so that they do not propagate the virus. We have also installed snake shells at every service point. I believe you will get the opportunity to take you through our facilities so that you can to disinfect their hands before after, if it so desires, if it so feels it is appropriate. In addition to that, there will be regular disinfection of our facilities to make sure that if there happens to be any virus somewhere, that virus will be killed. Now, to the general public, because social distancing is a good measure against the spread of the virus, we are going to be limiting the people that we would allow to enter our terminal building. And therefore, if you don't have any business in the terminal building, you will not be allowed entry. If you are traveling, or if you are accompanying somebody who is not that well and that person needs assistance, we would allow it. Other than that, you will not be allowed. Another measure is that we are not allowing pets to accompany their owners on flights anymore. And we also encourage online check-in to reduce the contacts at the airport. And last but not the least, passengers are advised to arrive at the airport at least 4 hours before their scheduled flight. I believe you understand it, because there will be various checks to make sure that you are following the various protocols to safeguard the spread of the virus. With this, I thank you very much for your patience and listening. Thank you.
That is Mr. Kwakwa. He is the acting managing director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited. As you heard him mention, you would have the opportunity to go through a test to be supervised by Port Health. Port Health is a unit or a department under the Ghana Health Service. I would like to invite Dr. Patrick Kumabwaje to speak briefly to the testing regime, and then specifically what happens or what is the case management protocol should somebody test positive. And just to clarify, Mr. Kwakwa is the substantive managing director of the Ghana Airport Company Limited. So, Dr. Bwaji.
Thank you very much. All honorable ministers, presidential advisor. I'll be brief and walk you through the protocols. The overarching objective of this is to reduce the transmission of the virus to passengers, travelers, and staff. And most importantly, to limit the importation of the virus into the country. So as has been mentioned, the general mandatory rules will be: one, mandatory face mask by all persons accessing the Kotoka International Airport, including the car parks, among other places. Enforcement of the social distancing protocols, and lastly, the mandatory hand hygiene, as using alcohol-based sanitizers to be able to wash your hands. For arriving passengers, as has been mentioned, you will need to come in with a negative PCR test taken at most 72 hours before you travel into the country. Ghanaians who travel for a meeting that returns in less than a week or within a week will be exempted from having to come in with a negative PCR testing. That's very important for people to know. There's also a digitized health declaration form that people can fill. You can even complete that before you arrive. That will tell us whether your risk level, are you sick, have you had any situation, where have you traveled to, so that allow the Port Health to be able to properly assess the risk that you are carrying, in addition to your negative PCR test. The mandatory COVID-19 test on arrival, has been mentioned, will be done. And by the time you go through and get down to the Port Health before you go to immigration, your results will be there for them to be able to access you to allow in. I'll get to when you are positive later. There are exemptions to the mandatory test. Children under 5 will not be tested because the risk is low and all the inconvenience that goes with it. Air crew will also not be subjected to the mandatory testing at the airport here, but they will have to follow their own protocols as far as the airline testing is concerned. For our departing passengers, as usual, the mandatory face masks should be observed. Compliance with the destination rules will come. So if there's a country that also requires a PCR test before you arrive, all that will be checked before you leave. And then, or your temperatures, etc. In addition to the other things that the Port Health checks, vaccination protocols will all be checked through. Transit passengers who do not require to enter the country will not be subject to the mandatory test at the airport unless they are coming and entering Ghana before they leave. So basically, those are the things. But for the person who gets down there and is positive, the Port Health will now take over. They will walk you through, assist you through immigration so that to prevent any further contamination. There's a holding room that will be assigned to, and then your bags will be put up. You'll be sent into, all of them will be sent to Ghana East Hospital for triaging, after which the necessary protocols, whether it's treatment, isolation, etc., will be instituted for all of them. So basically, these are the broad protocols in addition to all that has been mentioned at the airport. So thank you very much.
Thank you. That's Patrick Kuma Abwaje, Director General of the Ghana Health Service. Can I ask for the microphone to be brought to my right here, to the right here? Colleagues, this is the end of the first part of our brief. If you have a question, like we always do, please signal us and you step forward and raise your question, and then we can get you some answers. The second part of our brief will make some quick remarks on the Nigerian situation and take your questions as well. So if you have questions about the reopening of the international airport effective tomorrow morning, please step forward. Yes. That's fine. Is the microphone on? One moment, please.
Hello.
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Good morning. My name is Lily Mohammed from GH1 TV. So you have outlined processes for Ghanaians departing. What of Ghanaians coming from other parts as well?
What about Ghanaians arriving?
Yes. And other passengers arriving in Ghana.
Okay. These protocols are for arrivals?
Yes.
Yes. So you are talking about departures rather? Okay. Protocols for departure. Colleagues, any other questions? Are there any other takers who can just join up so that we are quick with the questions? Yes, come. Could you come this way?
Good morning, Honorable.
Morning.
Honorable, my name is Abednego Asante. I work with Adobe FM. As you know, maybe some question in tree. Honorable, first one is, sir, decision government and our president are taking. We assure the Ghanaian public say, are we no play any chacha? Exposing the entire country to the pandemic. The second one is the cost involved. The month will be brave. So by text on arrival now, how much is it going to cost?
I'm sorry, can I say $150? What kind of that? $150. So next question. Yeah, Kojo.
I'm Kojo from City News. I want to know the procedures for overflows. A lot of airlines will be, arriving from tomorrow onwards. What are the procedures for the overflows? And also, I also request that the media is taking on a tour of the facility that will receive passengers for testing. Thank you.
Very well. Yes, sir. Next question.
Yes, so two questions. PSA from Joy News, PSA staff for Joy News. So first is with the $150 you have to pay for the test. First of all, what went into it, and are we not afraid?
Come again. First of all,
what goes into that $150, and are we not afraid a bit that this could make our airport less competitive if others within the sub-region are charging much lesser? And with the second one, given that we have our air borders open, what's stopping us from the land and sea? What's the science explaining why they're still closed? Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I will comment on two, and then I'll invite my colleagues to speak to the rest. There's a question about protocols for departure. So, Mr. Kwakwa, please stand by for that one. There's another question about procedures for overflow. Again, Mr. Kwakwa, I'll leave that one to you. Dr. Kuboy, I'll invite you to speak to the question of the justification for the $150 test, especially as there are suggestions that other countries are costing lower to test. Is there a difference in the testing mechanisms and how that affects whether or not we will be competitive? But I'll quickly speak to the issue of the land and sea borders and Adom FM's question in Tree about whether or not this is risky. So you are aware that what the president does is to receive advice and examine the advice on our ability to mitigate the risk for everything we do. In the case of the international airport, the advice and the processes as have been outlined by the Ghana Health Service, Ghana Civil Aviation, or Ghana Airport Company Limited and the Aviation Ministry give him reason to believe that the risk is well mitigated and can be contained. Indeed, His Excellency the President himself did not just take their word for it, but he came here himself on a visit yesterday and was taking through the entire process. And there's that conviction that the various layers, including the fact that you do a negative PCR test before you board, provides us with some very significant comfort that the risk can be contained. Government continues to examine, for example, the testing regime in our neighboring countries and the levels of confidence we can have in those as part of measures to examine how the land borders and the sea borders can also be opened. So at this stage, because we have confidence in how the international airport, its systems, and the risk levels can be managed, that is why this has happened. When we get to a point where we are confident that for the land borders, same can happen, a decision will be made there. You are aware, for example, in the case of students going to school, because we are not convinced that pre-tertiary, the kind of mechanisms that are being put in place will be able to protect our children. The president has elected to terminate the academic year and ask that next year the curriculum be adjusted to reflect that. So every decision he makes is based on a risk assessment of how well the risk can be contained. And if he's not convinced, he won't move there yet. That would be the reason. Adom FM, question no. Enya chacha na yeto. Di aye bia no. Yedi gu nsaniani esusu se so ye bambo no ebeto sia na se begyina ne na so. Enu nti na wahwe a ye borders Burkina, Ivory Coast, Togo, ene Tema. Ye mie san se ho no ye ndum pempenso bi a ye wo gidie se omo betumi aso bibia no. Mpanifo okoso ahwe. So omo hwe nhyehyeye a yaye wo ho na se eto asum se ye betumi abo enyina wo ban a omampani betu ho anamo we dia wa ye na nye chacha na oto. Esan se omaye ho adwuma ma owo gidie se on betumi abo ho ban na enu nti na ne wo bie na wanti o masem keke enra awia kwa anwumre ansa na o bebie no ono ankasa ba ha de nani behweye enanti mu ankasa hweye ti nya chacha to eniama ye de egu akwan mu no eno na ohwe editu eho anamo. So I want to invite Dr. Patrick Okoboy to speak to the question of the $150 justification, and then Mr. Kwakwa will speak to the protocols for departure and procedures for a possible overflow. And Mr. Kwakwa, while at that, you may want to give us some numbers. When are you expecting your first flight? What are the numbers of passengers that you are expecting over a certain period? To give us a sense, perhaps you may even tell us how many additional people have you brought in here to help contain the situation.
Thank you very much. So, as a ministry and as stakeholders involved in COVID management, and of course, for that matter, the government, we were also very much interested in the cost of the test. We wanted to make sure that the cost of the test would not put unnecessary difficulty or burden on the passenger. Now, we quickly looked at what is being charged across the globe. So when you go to a place like Zimbabwe, you pay about $210 for the test. In China, you pay about $150 for the test. And they are doing PCR, which is a very good test that identifies the virus itself. And in China, after paying $150, you have to wait for about 6 hours average before you get results. When you go to Togo here, you pay about 150 euros, not dollars. In Benin, you are paying about 150 euros. In fact, I just got the figures for Nigeria. You pay about $130, and not only that, you have to go to a hotel and wait for results, which can be 1 or 2 nights. So if you are paying about $100 for the night, in all you are spending close to $300 for just making sure that you are safe of the virus or free of the virus. Now, so with all these considerations, remember that anyone coming to Ghana must have a negative PCR test. On the average in Europe, if you should enter a lab, not even the airport, to do a PCR test, you are looking at average 100 euros. So what do we do in Ghana, or how do we look at it? So we sat down and looked at the solution we had. Now, there is a good reason why a PCR test is the most preferred, or one of the gold standard. It's because it tells you that the virus is present. And not only that, but for academic purposes, it can give you some parts of the virus that over time, when you put together, you can have what we refer to as a complete genome, which is the whole map of the virus. Here at the airport, forgive me, it's not about academic research. We are interested in two things. The test must be very specific and sensitive, which means it must tell us that this guy has the virus if he has it. And if the test says it's negative, really, you pose no risk to Ghanaians. And we got a solution that was checked at Noguchi, checked with FDA, checked with Ghana Standards Board, and came out with a specificity and sensitivity rate of between 99 to 100%. Now, secondly, we also were interested very much in the time, the turnaround time, how long it takes to get the results. And after going through a lot of testing, we had a minimum of 12 minutes, maximum of 30 minutes. And with these two indicators, we now had to decide whether $150 of having the two most important requirements met is reasonable or not. And when we considered other things, we thought that comparing this figure to others around and what you would have spent, I think let me take my time to speak about this. Before this reopening, we had evacuation, special flights coming to Ghana. Any passenger who got on board actually paid for 2 weeks of hotel bills before coming to Ghana. And if you are paying an average of, let's say, even $70 a night, you have to multiply $70 by 14 days. The cost far overwhelms what you charge for, the test we are doing right now. Secondly, if we should keep you here for 6 hours, for the other test regimes that take 6 hours, it will pose a risk of congestion at the airport, which in itself will serve as an incubation chamber for possibly a sharing of the virus amongst passengers. So the factors tell us that it is actually proper or prudent to go with this regime. Thirdly, remember that when Ghana first quarantined travelers in this country, and we picked over 100 and so cases, we actually tested them twice. And each PCR test we did cost an average $70 to $100. So Ghana spent close to $200 on one person to make sure that the virus is not brought to Ghanaians. And so for the passenger to pay $150, which is less than what we paid, and we fed them as well, I think it is a very good bargaining. If you want to come to Ghana, we as a government are interested in you coming, but we don't want you to come here with the virus. And by the way, nothing is more expensive than getting a virus, because it can lead to a critical illness and can lead to death as well. And when we start comparing the prices, I believe you agree that to pay $150 and keep Ghanaians safe, it is worth doing that. And it's going to be borne by the passenger. I think this is important. The cost is going to be borne by the passenger and not the state, not the taxpayer. And I believe after all the considerations, we were good to go. We even are looking at, out of the 150, some percentage coming to Ghana Airport Company Limited, the civil aviation, the port health, because this involves a lot of logistics accumulation and all that. So I am convinced that this is worth it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'll take the overflow question first. In putting the solution in place, we looked at the maximum number of passengers that we can receive here within a period of time, and we use 1.5 hours. and the total number of passengers based on the airlines that could come here and the maximum capacity of those airlines, we calculated 1,200 passengers. So our challenge was that we have to put in place a solution that could offer the convenience that I discussed before. That is, people should get in, we test them with a very accurate system so that they can exit the airport to encourage people to come to Ghana to drive our economy. It was not an easy task, but let's do the numbers here. In the solution that you'll see in the future, we have 70 sample taking positions. So meaning there will be 70 people in booths, nicely designed, built on the upper arrival concourse. It takes about, in our test, it took about maximum 20 seconds to take the sample. And so you can imagine the number of samples that can be taken. Let's use 30 seconds. 30 seconds means every minute, one station can take 2 samples. So 2 samples times 70 stations, 140 in a minute. So 140 times 60 minutes, way beyond the 1,200 people. Are you following? Are you following my argument? Even 140 times 10 is 1,400. So 140 per minute times 60 for the hour comes way above the 1,200 threshold. And so the sample taking will not be the bottleneck. How about the actual testing? We have 80 machines. Each machine can process 6 tests within 12 to 15 minutes. So I'll use the 15 minutes for my calculation. It means every 15 minutes we can perform 480 tests. So in the hour, times 4. Once again, more than 1,200. Meanwhile, the 1,200 that I quoted is over a 90-minute period. That's just a 1.5 hour period. So these 2 activities that could limit our capacity to test people, we have more capacity than we need. I have to go back and explain that the 30 minutes that His Excellency gave yesterday includes the time that somebody enters our terminal building, he puts his mask on, he goes through the process of queuing to join the line at the payment center, gets his payment done, gets his sample taken, goes down to Port Health to interact with the Port Health person to know whether he could come into the nation or whether he should be handed over to Port Health. 30 minutes. So it's not the actual test. And that's why I said the testing capacity we have we have more than enough. Yes, there are. Our departure protocols includes the mandatory wearing of face masks, mandatory sanitizing of hands at the entrance of the terminal building, and mandatory temperature checks, all by Port Health and Ghana Airport staff at the entrance. And then in the terminal building as well, in the departure terminal building too, once again, we have all the markings to help people to social distance, and there will be enforcers. We have an enforcement team between Ghana Airports Company and Ghana Health Services to ensure that these protocols that we put in place are going to be observed. No, you don't need to take any test before you go. I believe the Honorable Deputy Minister for Health explained that if the destination country has that protocol, then you'll be required to take the test before we allow you to go. But Ghana is not putting that burden on its citizens to get the test done before they leave, at least for now. No, I'm talking about our if you want, our peakest period, over a 1.5 hour period. That is the peak based on the capacity of the airline that would arrive within that time. Yeah. And there will be. And we will entertain any service provider who may want to rent some of our officers to offer that service. It's not a monopoly.
So, colleagues, just to be clear, depending on the requirements of the country that you are going into, that is what will determine whether or not you require a test. The exiting country does not necessarily put a burden on you to require a test. The testing machines are here at the airport as well. We'll take a final batch of questions for this session, if there are any. A final batch of questions. Yes, please step forward. Are there any other takers? Are there any other takers? So this should be the final one. Okay, Komla, final one.
Good morning. My name is Komla Adom. I work with Media Generals, TV3 and 3FM. Now, my question is about the PCR negative test passengers are supposed to have before here. I know that the president mentioned that it has to be from a certified laboratory. Yeah. Which are these certified laboratories, and are the passengers going to be able to have a list to know which of these laboratories they can go to and have their tests?
Okay, thank you. We'll take that one very quickly. So the airlines have been communicated to. The various countries of origin have clarity of the certified labs in those countries, and the airlines are the ones that are working with them to ensure that that is what is admissible at the point of embarkation. Colleagues, we are running out of time. We want to quickly deal with our second brief, take your questions, and then we'll wrap up. But before then, the Honorable Minister for Aviation has a quick comment related to the airport, and then I'll give you a quick brief on the Nigerian situation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Indeed, I think I should take this opportunity to say something that is going on in social media and throughout the whole country. Today, we're very concerned about aviation because of the vision of His Excellency the President. You recall that during the tenure of President Kufuor, we set up a dedicated sector ministry for aviation. When NPP lost power and NDC came on board, they merged it back into the mainstream transport ministry. When NPP came back to power again, Nana Addo Dankwa decided to set up a dedicated ministry for aviation for a very good reason. The reason simply is that there's great potential in the aviation sector to help the development of this nation, and that's why we set it up. And that's been done with an associated vision of ensuring that we become the hub of aviation in the West African sub-region. Why? It is so because we can create jobs with this sector, we can develop businesses in this sector, we can transform the nation, especially when we set up airport cities within the context of a smart city development agenda. Now, if we're doing this simply to get jobs for people, to transform the development arrangement of the country, why would we want to sell the airports? Why would we want to privatize the airport? Why would we want to resort to management contracts? So I want to make it very clear to the media and to the general public that under the tenure of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, there's not going to be any sale of any airport infrastructure or the Kotoka International Airport whatsoever. We are not selling the airport. We are not privatizing the airport. Indeed, we do not even have a management contract for any company to come and take over the management of the airport. That's not going to happen under us. What we're working on is to ensure that we expand the infrastructure, to create more opportunities for Ghanaians. Now, the constraint we have is that we have to service a big debt for this terminal building. Minister of Finance cannot shoulder the burden of keep giving us more money every time to develop infrastructure because they've got roads, health, education to deal with. Therefore, we have to look at partnerships. Why are we looking at partnerships? We need to have what we call aviation training organization. In the West and Central African region of the continent of Africa, we do not have any pilot training facility within West and Central Africa. We do not have what we call the maintenance repair organization, which is the training of technicians and engineers to service aircraft. We do not have dedicated fixed-base terminal, meaning that we don't have a private jet terminal in Ghana. We are trying to set up one. We need a big cargo village. What we have here is relatively small. If you compare us with Ethiopia and other countries in Africa like Egypt, we need to have all those. We do not have the money to do that. We are anticipating going to partnership with all kinds of potential investors, Ghanaian or non-Ghanaians, that will be subjected to whatever national interest that we put ahead of anything else. And in that negotiation, we will not sell the airport, we will not privatize the airport, we're not going to have any management contract. So I want to make that very, very clear, that we are not selling the airport, we're not privatizing the airport. We want to create more jobs, more infrastructure, expansion of the airports in Tamale, in Kumasi, and completing the rehabilitation of Sunyani. We need more jobs. So we need more people, especially those working in the aviation sector now, will be the ones to go there and take up more senior level positions. And then we'll be recruiting more people to add on there. So there's no need to set up any agenda, politically motivated, to tell people that they're going to lose their jobs simply because we're looking to expand infrastructure. I want to make this very, very clear to all Ghanaians that there's no sale of the airport, there's no privatization of the airport, there's no management contract, but there would be continuous effort to expand the infrastructure to make sure the aviation-driven development agenda of this government meets the objective of the vision of the president, which is having Ghana become the aviation hub of the sub-region. Thank you very much.
Minister, thank you. Colleagues, we'll spend the last 5 minutes dealing with just a quick set of remarks on the Nigerian situation, and if you have questions, I'll take it. You would recall that in recent weeks, there have been agitations by some of our Nigerian brothers and sisters here in Ghana. The agitations have essentially hovered around the enforcement of some of Ghana's laws generally, not limited to Nigerians, but generally in terms of trade, etc. These matters are matters that are traditionally dealt with at the diplomatic level. Unfortunately, as you observed, our Nigerian colleagues escalated it with a statement in the mass media. Ghana has elected to do two things. I just want to read you a paragraph of our statement we issued yesterday. We remain committed to the maintenance of warm relations with all sister nations, particularly for well-known historical reasons, with the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and Ghana is proceeding to engage the federal government of Nigeria with a view to resolving comprehensively and exhaustively any matters that have the potential to sour relations between the two countries. And those engagements have started. But at the same time, we believe it is important to set the record straight on some of the accusations, and that's why we've provided a full detail of the accusations that are made against Ghana and our responses therein. And we are optimistic that the diplomatic conversations would ensure that the facts are laid bare and that the cordial relationship between Ghana and Nigeria continues. Those will be our quick remarks on that. If you have any specific question on that, happy to take it now as we wrap up. Could you, very quickly, if you have a question, we're happy to take your question. Is there any other question, colleagues? Is there any other question? Could you, yours perhaps is the